Welcome to Luca Guadagnino's Suspiria. The movie starts by telling us that it will have 6 acts, an epilogue, and is set in the divided Berlin, which means that this is going to be like an opera, so grab a lot of popcorn if you dare to eat in this kind of movie. Act 1 begins, set in 1977 with Patricia Hingel, a very disturbed young lady who runs from the street, which is full of riots, into an apartment where she anxiously knocks on the door several times. An old man opens the door, Dr. Joseph Klemperer, Patricia's psychotherapist. Patricia makes herself at home while the doctor sits at his desk. He grabs his notebook and writes what Patricia says. Everything seems as normal as a psychotic breakdown could be, but then Patricia says something that catches the doctor's attention. They are witches. Patricia keeps talking, and the doctor writes that her delirium has worsened to panic. Patricia continues telling the doctor how it started as something beautiful, but then the alleged witches treated her worse each day. Then he runs away, but as a shrink that knows her, he doesn't seem disturbed at all. In fact, he just goes to attend to his next patient. In a huge field where everything seems peaceful, with cows and wheat, a woman lays in her bed, apparently sick, and her family and friends are in the house, waiting for the worst. The pastor arrives and we see that the woman has a very emaciated face. Then, we meet Susie Banyan, our red-haired protagonist. She reaches Berlin with all her savings in cash and traveler's checks, and of course, she stands out among the people in the subway for her hillbilly look. She reaches the huge building she's looking for, and she feels seen despite no one being there. The secretary tells her that today is not a good time, but they will go to see the audition in spite of it. Susie goes to the audition and asks for Vera Blanc, but the teachers tell her that she's not ready to audition in front of her. Susie dances with all her soul, and clearly, the teachers are impressed with her stage performance. Vera Blanc feels it from another room and suddenly, she appears where Susie is dancing. Not spooky at all. Susie gets accepted at the dance school, and she starts immediately, as it is some sort of communist academy. They don't pay the dancers much, but they offer housing, which is a great turning point for Susie, who thought that she had to pay to stay there. It's not usual that they have free rooms at that time of the year, but luckily there's one free, the one that Patricia left empty. While all this is happening, Vera Blanc is watching Susie through a mirror, like in a Jessel chamber. Susie meets Sarah, a fellow dancer from the house, who talks while Susie wonders about Miss Blanc and how she defends women's creativity. On the outside, a bomb explodes, and the girls get nervous and speak about the situation. Sarah says she's worried about her friend, Patricia. Act 2 is named Palace of Tears, and we see Dr. Klemperer has spent a sleepless night. The teachers prepare dinner while they vote to choose who will be in charge, and Mother Marcos wins. Among all the teachers, there's one woman acting weird, and maybe we should keep an eye on her. Another teacher whispers about what happened to Patricia and, surprise, surprise, she reveals that they are actually witches, wondering how to make their next ritual better, and it seems that Susie, our American sweetheart, will be involved in it. Dr. Klemperer travels to East Berlin and visits a house that he probably shared with his old flame. There he rests, although we see that his anxiety does not totally leave him. I feel you, doctor, I feel you. Sarah takes Susie to the house at the dance school and shows Susie her room. They will be neighbors. Back in West Berlin, Dr. Klemperer reviews his notes, while his secretary talks about how wonderful Aunt, the doctor's wife, was. Vera Blanc introduces Susie to the rest of the class, and she is intimidated. The rehearsal begins, and they replace Patricia with another girl named Olga. Olga tries, but fails, and confronts Blanc for lying about Patricia's disappearance. She has a serious meltdown, threatens to leave, and like a teenager from a 90s sitcom, flees the room. The rehearsal must go on, but none of the students feel ready to take the leading role, except our dear Susie, and although no one trusts her, Blanc does, so Susie proceeds to dance alone. Olga tries to leave the house with her luggage, but after meeting 2 of the teachers, her eyes begin to drool. And remember the weird lady from the dinner. She cries and acts even weirder. A female voice calls Olga, and she ends up locked in a mirror saloon, and here's where we see what is really going on. As Susie dances in one room, Olga gets beaten by force in another. Sorry, Patricia, for not trusting you at the beginning. At this point, we're stunned by this, just as the teachers and the students are stunned by Susie's dance. Susie rests for the rest of the day, on Blanc's orders, takes a urine sample, and recalls her childhood, when she was obsessed with going to Berlin, despite her family telling her she had to stay in America. Susie hands over her urine sample to a tray where the rest of the girls' samples are. Dr. Klemperer inspects all the notes that Patricia left in her backpack at the psychiatrist's office. The teachers gather around Olga's body and take it out of the Hall of Mirrors. Klemperer calls the police and reports her disappearance. I hope there is a witch police officer in West Berlin at that time. Susie has dinner with Blanc while she tells her the history of the Mennonites, the community where she comes from. Blanc asks Susie how she felt dancing, and her answer is, well, let's say, just strange. Blanc tells her that she will have to improve her dancing a lot, but that she is certainly better than Patricia, thankful that our poor crazy uncrazy is gone. Blanc dismisses Susie with a weird wave behind her, but what do we know about what's weird and what's not, for witches? Susie tells Sarah that Blanc wants to make her the lead in the production, Valk, and although Sarah congratulates her, she is worried about what Olga said in the rehearsal. So do we, Sarah. Sarah asks Susie for a favor, and makes her promise that she will fulfill it. That night, Susie has some strange dreams, as I'm sure we'll all have after this movie. The third act is The Borrowing. It's raining in Berlin, and 2 policemen arrive at the academy asking for Miss Marcos, obviously to find out about Patricia. One of the mothers who attends to them pretends to be Miss Blanc, and something tells me that this is not going to end well. She invites them in and they go. Susie and Sarah sneak around the house and enter an office full of files, where they look for Olga and Patricia's records, but they don't exist. Susie sees how the mothers make fun of one of the policemen, that she is half and motionless, and Susie laughs at what she sees. Sarah and Susie leave the office. At rehearsal, Blanc invites them to explore her emotions and tells Susie to improvise. The mothers laugh knowingly. All the girls dance, and Susie gives her all on the floor. A rather unpleasant hand caresses the roof of a place that we do not see. Miss Blanc and Miss Tainer discuss the presence of Marcos, the hand, in the rehearsal. Blanc is reluctant to lose another girl for the ritual, but Tainer reminds her that she was not chosen by a vote. Her role is to prepare her for the ritual. Susie asks Sarah if she felt anything weird at rehearsal, and Sarah thinks it's weird because it's the kind of thing Patricia was saying. The girls from the academy go out to a bar together with the mothers and have fun. The mothers communicate telepathically, pretending to be as normal as possible, but in reality, Blanc sees and controls Susie's weird dreams. Oh boy, these witches are something else. Susie screams in the middle of the night, and several girls wake up and go to her room, telling her that it's normal when someone starts at the academy. Sarah goes to sleep with Susie to calm her down. The Taking is our 4th act. It no longer rains, but snows in Germany, and Klemperer fixes his little house in East Berlin. He goes to the police station and asks for the policeman who dealt with his case. On a billboard, he sees a photo of Patricia, accused of. The other policeman who went to the house tells Klemperer that it is a perfectly normal place, although our doctor insists on what Patricia says in his diary. The policeman dismisses his testimony, and Klemperer recognizes the other policeman and thanks him for helping him investigate the case of his wife. The girls rehearse, and Susie corrects her skipping with Blanc's prompting. Susie gives her opinion about the jumps in the dance, contradicting Blanc's instructions, and she corrects her, but something strange happens between them. Leaving the class, Caroline has a seizure and the girls are scared. Some girls go for a walk, but they are intercepted by Klemperer, and he tells Sarah that he is a friend of Patricia's. Klemperer tells her about what Patricia believed, and that he suspects that the academy is really a revolutionary organization. Sarah denies it, and Klemperer shows her a diary of Patricia's, telling her that this delusion is a lie that tells the truth. Sarah says that she doesn't believe any of that, but Klemperer insists, and Sarah gets upset and leaves. At the academy, Sarah notices that Susie is not in her room, and it seems strange to her. Do you remember the room where Olga danced? Well, now Blanc takes Susie to rehearse there, so that she recognizes her body in the space surrounded by mirrors. The mothers discuss what can happen now, with Susie and the ritual, stating that it is too risky since it is the first time they are trying it. Susie jumps to the rhythm Blanc dictates, until she smiles. The mothers argue about the importance of euthanizing Susie before Marcos loses her life, and the weirdo teacher takes a knife and plunges it into his neck. Of course, everybody screams. Sarah tries to hear through the walls. She walks through the house, counting her steps, until she reaches the mirrored room, and there, she discovers a secret door, which I doubt will lead her to Wonderland. She goes down some stairs and finds a picture of Blanc with a woman in black glasses. In that same place, slimy things, body parts, and organs are arranged like in a museum. He hears the mother screaming about what happened to our weirdo, and Sarah takes a hook. Cleverly, she talks to Klemperer about what she saw, and he explains that they must be the 3 mothers, pre-Christian witches. Sarah asks him if he believes in witches, to which she replies that they are belief systems, and compares it to the Reich, so whatever, they are dangerous people. He tells Sarah to run away and leave the hook there. The mothers prepare a pentagram in the rehearsal room, just as it is drawn in one of Patricia's diaries. Leaving the office, Sarah finds none other than Miss Tainer, but some boys pass by, and she turns into an older woman who goes the other way. Oh, Sarah, it was good to have met you. The girls prepare for a hair and costume rehearsal, and Susie gets a haircut. Susie, with her new look, reminisces about her mother's final moments when she said that the only sin of hers was the birth of Susie. Thanks for telling us, now we know what Susie is made of. Sarah watches the essay and worries about Susie. She tells her about her fear that she is making a pact, without knowing what she is giving in exchange for it, but Susie calms her down. Apparently, the era of in Germany is over, and that night is the premiere of Volk. Susie asks about Sarah, and they tell her that they haven't seen her since morning. Klemperer attends the premiere alone, and thus begins the 5th act in the madhouse. Everyone is anxious for the premiere, and Sarah, dressed for the performance, explores the basement of the house. Before entering the scene, Susie senses something behind her back. Sarah hears someone calling her, and finds Patricia weakened, looking like the girl from The Exorcist. A figure stands up and Sarah flees, terrified, and Patricia lies down again. Before entering the scene, they all ask for Sarah, and since she is not there, they tell them to dance as if she were. Sarah is lost in the basement of the academy, trying to escape. Volk's last performance begins, as Sarah is telekinetically hit by the dancing girls. The mothers reach Sarah, and Blanc hypnotizes her with her touch. Tainer tells Blanc that Susie is ready. Klemperer is among the public, and raises suspicions in one of the mothers. Sarah joins the dance as if nothing had happened to her, until she screams and collapses to the floor. The lights come on, and Klemperer approaches her, The mothers try to help her and take her out of the place. Klemperer realizes that there is some truth in Patricia's diary. Susie, in her room, is visited by Blanc. Susie already knows what it's all about. Blanc takes her hands, and Susie finds in her the maternal understanding she never before had. Now, in the 6th act, everything promises to get even crazier. Susie pushes herself through rehearsals and feels her body on an almost spiritual level. Whatever is going to happen to her will happen that same night. Klemperer leaves his house, and the girls go to a party with their mothers and have a feast. Klemperer throws away Patricia's diaries and hooks them into a river. At his home in West Berlin, Klemperer finds a woman, apparently his long-awaited wife, Anke. They both cry with joy, and Anke tells him everything that has happened since they last saw each other. She had been told that he had lost his life and made her life in Bristol. At the feast, Susie and Blanc communicate telepathically, while the rest of the women are drunk. Klemperer walks with his wife and they go to East Berlin, but when they arrive at the academy, Klemperer finds himself alone and doesn't know how he got there. 2 witches grab him and take him into the house, taunting him for not believing Patricia. Susie arrives at the underground coven, where all the witches are in their true forms doing rituals and the lost girls are. Susie is ready, and Marcos, who looks a bit like a summerish Jabba the Hutt, is happy because he will finally be able to merge into Susie's young body. Blanc looks quite uncomfortable and tries to dissuade Susie by claiming that something is not right. Marcos eliminates Blanc and asks Susie to disown her birth mother. Poor Klemperer is scared more than anyone, but wait, nobody expected this. A terrifying figure appears, scaring even Marcos. Susie says that she is Mother Superorium, and the monster eliminates Marco. Chaos and terror reign in the place, while Susie, in a show of dance and red colors, ends everything. The disheveled woman who always waits on people dismisses Klemperer with a song, and he walks away, probably with his memory reset. In the epilogue, the girls in their beds have nightmares. Klemperer sits in his office devastated. At the academy, it is announced that Blanc has left. Tanner can't believe her ears. And in the basement, the surviving mothers clean up the mess from the night before. Susie visits the distraught Klemperer and tells him the truth about his wife. She was murdered in a concentration camp, along with 40,000 others. He tells her his last thought was the time he held her hand at a concert he surprised her with on her birthday. Then, on behalf of all the women who disappeared, Susie wipes his memory. Klemperer convulses, and Susie disappears. It is spring in Berlin, and the initials on the house of Klemperer and his wife remain. What a romantic ending for this ritualistic movie. I hope you enjoyed all the visuals, and do take your time to listen to the wonderful score that Tom York composed for this ride.